Welcome everyone to Philip's Birthday Bash, live streaming from Magic Hill and the Magical Strings living room. Now if you've come to hear music of peace and solace and comfort by Magical Strings, well, you've come to the right place at the wrong time, because I am going to play a whole variety of music that's going to take you on a different journey. However, of course, I will play some peaceful harp tunes as well, don't you worry. But I'm going to start right off with a delightful melody from the Irish harper, Sherlock O'Carolyn, but not played on the harp, played on the penny whistle. It's called Charles O'Connor. So there. Next, I'm going to take you to a realm of my childhood. Now, I was born of parents who were both very high-powered intellectuals and lovers of peace. Now, I didn't hold this against them, of course, until I reached my adolescent years, but that's another story. But my father, who was a professor of economics at the University of Michigan, at the time had his first sabbatical and took our whole family to the island of Jamaica to live for a year. And I was only 5 going on 6. It was a magical year for me. But it wasn't until many years later that the music and the folk songs that I heard back then in my early childhood came back to haunt me on my harp. And I brought this piece forth, which I call Jamaican Childhood. island culture to another. It's a long story how I came to be introduced to and subsequently fall in love with the music of Madagascar. But it was because of people's knowledge of my interest in all things harp-like from around the world. And that's how I got introduced to the Vali from Madagascar. This is a bamboo harp. Essentially, they describe it as a tubular harp, where the strings are strung all around its circumference. They're made of old bicycle brake cables, which they unravel the strands, and that makes the perfect music wire. Now, I was very fortunate to meet some truly wonderful and masterful players of this instrument, one of whom is Justin Vali. Now, this is actually my second instrument. My first and primary one I discovered recently broke a string, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to go back to Madagascar to get it fixed. But this one was given to me by Justin Vali, and in fact his name is inscribed in circle around the top. And I thought I'd play for you a little piece that I composed on the instrument, just a little nugget from a piece that I composed called Vali Carol, just to give you an idea of the sound of this thing. And now from Madagascar, back around the world again to another island, a favorite one of ours, the island of Maui. I composed a piece on one of our journeys there, on our sojourn to Hana. And we stayed at a place called the Ohana Kai, and it was a long and arduous journey to get there, but as the sun was setting, we were finally settling in. I picked up my harp. This piece came forth, which I call Ohana Kai, which means family of the sea. And of course, I've been enamored of the slack key guitar music of Hawaii for many years, initially inspired by the wonderful music of Caleb Beamer. So this is in the style of the Hawaiian guitar, transposed to the harp. And I'm going to recite a little poem, excerpt of a sonnet that I wrote on one of those journeys, and then play for you Ohana Kai, just to set the mood for this wonderful island atmosphere. Such wonder, as upon the shore I swoon, to hear the constant dialogue of sea, and wind and earth and fire calling to me, beneath the warming sun and shining moon. 'Tis here the ancient primal lullaby sings to my soul with its eternal sigh. Now I'm going to move into the mountains and foothills of Colorado, where my mother built a hermitage a long time ago on the mountainside. She was not only quite a distinguished professor and academic, but she had a profoundly spiritual life, and she spent a year at this hermitage of solitude writing her first epic work called The Underside of History, which is about women from ancient times to the present. But it was after she died, and we had her ashes to spread around the waterfall, which we called the property at the time. And I was there alone. My brothers were to meet me, but one thing and another came up. So there I was in solitude at the hermitage. I had spread her ashes around, ending in the sanctuary of her little abode there. And I discovered on a high shelf a mountain dulcimer that I had made for her many, many years earlier, my early days of instrument building from the early 70s. And I had made a few of these in the course of my instrument building life. So I pulled it down with curiosity and was quite surprised to find that it was in tune. So I began to play around on it. Probably it had been tuned by the nuns to whom my mother had bequeathed the land after my father died. I'm sure they had it nicely tuned up for me, but I began improvising on the mountain dulcimer and came up with this piece, which I call Mountain Hermitage. One moment though. Retuning. And now, to honor my mother's heritage, which was Norwegian. She actually emigrated with her family from the old country when she was only 3 years old. And she introduced me to a wonderful wealth of traditional Norwegian music. Among them, the tussafløyte, which is the gnome flute of Norway. And absolutely delightful tunes. I thought I'd play one for you now. But I'm not playing it on the tussaflöte because those are hard to come by. They're made out of wood. They look a little bit like a recorder, but they're played much like a penny whistle. So, a little Norwegian tune for you. Thank you. And now, for a little bit of fun and merriment, to my father's side of the family. Now, my father came from Liverpool, England, and came over to this country as a young man in college, and continued with studies and professorships, gone to professorship here. But he often referred to himself as a pre-Beatle Liverpudlian. That's how he endeared himself to his students at the university. And there was a tradition in my family's house, and it happened on Christmas Eve. My mother would read the Christmas story verse from the Bible in Norwegian first, and then my father would read it in English. And it was the only time of year that we heard the Norwegian language spoken, is when she read from the Bible, and it always intrigued me. And in later years, I was always sad that we never learned a word of Norwegian. But my mother had a reason for that. She didn't want us 5 children speaking a foreign language that her husband couldn't understand. And we could therefore talk and say all kinds of things behind his back. She made that conscious choice. To her credit and to our lack, but that's the way it goes. But then after the Christmas story with the alternating verses, we then clamored for the one thing that we knew our father was going to do every year at Christmas time, and that is to recite Albert and the Lion. So this is a little bit of dry humor from the English kingdom. And I learned the 2 parts of Albert and the Lion some time ago just to honor my father, and it was just fun to do. So I'm going to give you the first part, called Albert and the Lion. The second half, if we have time, well, we'll see. There's a famous seaside place called Blackpool that's noted for fresh air and fun. A Mr. and Mrs. Ramsbottom it were went there with young Albert their son. A grand little lad was young Albert, all dressed in his best, quite a swell, with his stick with the horses at handle, the finest that Woolworths could sell. They didn't think much of the ocean, the waves they was filling and small. No wrecks and nobody drowned. In fact, nothing to laugh at all. So seeking for further amusement, they paid and went into the zoo, where there's lions and tigers and camels and old ale and sandwiches too. There were one great big lion called Wallace. His nose was all covered with scars, but he lay in a somnolent posture with the side of his face under bars. Now Albert had heard about lions, how they was ferocious and wild, but seeing Wallace lying so peaceful like, well, it just didn't seem right to the child. So straightway the brave little fella, not showing a morsel of fear, took his stick where the horses had handle and shoved it in Wallace's ear. You could tell that the lion didn't like it. For giving a kind of a roll, pulled Albert inside the cage with him and swallowed the little lad whole. Now Pa, who had seen the occurrence and didn't know what to do next, said, "Mother, yon lion's it, Albert." And Mother said, I am vexed." The zookeeper came at that moment, who exclaimed, "What a nasty mishap. Are you sure it's your boy he's eaten?" Pa said, "Am I sure? There's his cap." "Quite right, young fella," said Mother, "and I think it's a shame and a sin for a lion to go and eat our Albert, and that we paid to come in." The manager had to be sent for. He came and he said, "What's to do?" Pa said, "Yon lion's it, Albert." Ma said, "Aye, and him in his Sunday best too." The manager wanted no trouble. He took out his purse right away and said, "How much to settle the matter?" Pa said, "How much do you usually pay?" But Mother had got a bit awkward when she thought where her Albert had gone. She said, "No, someone's got to be summoned." So that were decided upon. So straightway they went to the police station in front of the magistrate chap and told it how lion ate Albert and proved it by showing his cap. The magistrate gave his opinion that no one was really to blame, and he said that he was quite certain that Ramsbottoms would add for the sons to their name. That Mother got proper blazing. "And thank you, sir, kindly," said she. "What, waste all our lives raising children to feed ruddy lions? Not me." So, you might be a little distressed with what happened to poor Albert. So here's a little bit of Irish philosophy to help you to realize that things are really okay. You only have two things to worry about. Either you are sick or you are well. If you are well, you have nothing to worry about. If you are sick, you only have two things to worry about. Either you will get better or you will die. If you get better, you have nothing to worry about. If you die, you only have two things to worry about. Either you will go to heaven or you go to hell. If you go to heaven, you have nothing to worry about. If you go to hell, you will be so busy shaking hands with all your friends, you won't have time to worry. Now, this leads me to the next piece, to which I'm going to call up my one and only guest artist. I love humor, as you might imagine, and I got part of my twisted sense of humor from my children and my father, and the other part from my very favorite cartoonist, Gary Larson. And when he stopped making his cartoons, it was a sad day for me. So I created a lament. Naturally, I called it Lament for the Far Side. Now, there's one cartoon that's particularly famous, and I have a story to tell about it. But this is the cartoon that actually got me started, believe it or not, playing the accordion. There are two panels. There's St. Peter in the upper panel saying, "Welcome to heaven, here's your harp." There's the devil down below saying, "Welcome to hell, you got it, here's your accordion." All right. We were at Petosa Accordion in Seattle one day. I had brought something in for repair. And somehow in the conversation with the fellow, we got to talking about Gary Larson. And he said, "Oh, so you like Gary Larson cartoons?" I said, "Oh, yes, very much so." He said, "Well, come back here, I got something to show you." We went back into his office, and there on his wall, above his desk, was the original hand-drawn cartoon by Gary Larson of that very cartoon, "Welcome to Heaven, Here's Your Harp." I tell you, when I saw this, I practically fell down on my knees. But so this special guest artist that I am inviting to be with me now, his name is Sir Galahad. And I discovered that he had quite a fondness for the sound of the accordion. Of course, at first I wasn't sure if it was hurting his ears or if he really enjoyed it, but because he was always wagging his tail when I played, here we go. So, Galahad, are you ready? Are you ready to sing? We're going to do Lament for the Far Side, okay? So sit. I don't know if you can see him, but he's right here. He's our beautiful golden retriever and guardian of Magic Hill. All right, here we go. We'll see what happens. He never practices, you know, because he thinks it hurts the spontaneity of his music. So, ready, go. Well, he appears to be falling asleep, but you just wait and see. Well, you know what? If you go to our YouTube site, there is a post that I did with Galahad singing at full tilt at the top of his lungs. So I'm sorry he just wasn't in the mood today, and that's just the way it goes. What can you do? Man, you hire these guest artists and then they just, you know, one of the hazards of this occupation. All right, so let's see, what did I have in mind next? Right. Thought I'd play a little tune on the hammer dulcimer. And you hear a lot of Irish tunes, and traditional this and traditional that, and a lot of wonderful new tunes being composed and created on the hammer dulcimer. But I'll bet you haven't very often heard an Elvis Presley song on the dulcimer. Actually, where did those go? There they are. It's not really Elvis Presley. From an early American folk song called Ora Lee. And I learned this from Howard Mitchell, who was a wonderful man I never had the opportunity to meet, but it was who really got me started building hammer dulcimers. And it was on his book and record called The Hammer Dulcimer, How to Make It and Play It, that on the example side of the LP were all these different styles of playing, and one of them was this wonderful tune, Ora Lee. But from there, I'm going to go into something that comes from the Hungarian cymbalom tradition, but a rather lyrical tune, which I don't even know the name of, so I simply call it Hungarian Dance Tune. Now, I've come to that point in my life where I can't much play the hammer dulcimer anymore without my glasses. Harp's okay. I have an affinity for the blind harpers of Ireland or something, but hammer dulcimer is a different story. Too darn many strings and they all cross in the middle, I tell you. Okay. So now we have a dear friend who works at King FM, Sean McLean. And we've had a wonderful association with him over the years. And he's helped us as magical strings to get our music out to a broader listening audience. And we've been on his radio show a few times, but there came a time when he called us up and said, by the way, I'm moving to the peninsula. I won't be that far from you. I've got this lovely little house. And I'd love for you to have you come and play for a housewarming, once I get moved in. Well, we came to a few days before the event, and he called up in distress saying, well, I'm sorry to say I haven't had time to unpack my boxes yet. Pam said, oh, no problem, Philip will write you a song about it. And we showed up anyway. So given this task, the first thing that came to mind was Melvina Reynolds, of course. So I cribbed her melody, and I wrote a couple of verses for Sean, but I didn't stop there. Once I got going, I kept going. And I've written many verses for this song, but I'm just going to give you a few of them here today, called There Are Boxes. It's a moving song. There are boxes full of my stuff. They're all full of everything I own, and they're all made out of cardboard, and they all look just the same. There are tall ones, there are short ones, light ones and heavy ones, and they're all made out of cardboard. They all look just the same. It's a good thing that I marked them with a dart, and every one of them, 'cause they're all made out of cardboard. They all look just the same. I'll unstack them, then unpack them, and flatten them and recycle them. Then I'll clutter up all my new house like the old place I lived before. Ah, that's the way it goes. There are boxes in our basement. They've been there well over 30 years, some from parents, some from children, as they all went off to school. Someday they will come unpack them and flatten them and recycle them. Then they'll take our junk to the local dump like we should have done long before. Oh, sorry guys, that's the way it goes. There are boxes down at Amazon. They're shipping out our orders all around, and they're folks like Marie Kondo who say we should slender down. We want more stuff, we want less stuff. Maybe we don't know what we really want, but we all dump in a little box, then a bigger one goes underground. Ooh, that got me thinking. Please don't bury me, or compost me, or stick me in a crematorium, for I'd rather have a pyre like my ancestors long ago. Let an archer set the fire, with friends gathered and harp by my side. Just make sure I'm dead, for I really dread the very thought of being burned alive. Ow! That wouldn't feel so good. Someday I might simplify life and get rid of everything I own. Then I might live like a hermit. Maybe I'll live all alone. But then I'll miss my companions and all of my responsibilities. For we're all meant to heal this old world, and we're all meant to live as one. Yes, we all need to heal the whole world. We all need to live as one. Someday we will learn to live in peace, and we all will love as one. I love to sing. It's not something I do professionally, and perhaps that song there illustrates for you why, but I have a great time at it. But now back to some verse, all right. You know, we were pretty distressed about poor old Albert, so let me give you part two. This is Albert Returns. Get back in the mood of the Lancashire accent, which I imitate very badly, but I have fun doing this anyway. You've heard how young Albert Ramsbottom, who up in Blackpool one year, with a stick with an horse's head handle, gave a lion a poke in the ear. The name of the lion was Wallace. The poke in the ear made him wild, and before you could say, "Bob's your uncle," he up and he swallowed the child. He were sorry the moment he'd done it. With children he'd always been chums, and beside he'd no teeth in his mouth, and he couldn't chew Albert on gums. So presently poor old Wallace really began to feel bad, and he finally decided that it were quite time to stage a comeback for the lad. So with his head down in a corner, on his front paws started to walk, he coughed and he sneezed and he gargled, till Albert shot out like a cork. Old Wallace felt better directly. His figure once more became lean, but the only difference with Albert were his hands and his face were quite clean. Meanwhile, Mr. and Mrs. Ramsbottom went home to tea, feeling blue. Ma said, "I feel down in the mouth like." Pa said, "Ah, Albert does too." "But let's look at the bright side," said Father. "What can't be helped must be endured. Every cloud has a silvery lining, and we did have young Albert insured." A knock on the door came that moment as Father these kind words did speak. 'Twere the young man from the Prudential. He'd come for his tuppence per person per week. When Father saw who had been knocking, he laughed, and he kept laughing so, till the young man said, "Here now, what's to laugh at?" Pa said, "You'll laugh at all when you know." "Excuse him for laughing," said Mother, "but really things happen quite strange. Our Albert's been et by a lion. You've got to pay us for a change." The young man from the Prudential said, "Here now, let's understand this. You don't mean to say that you've lost him?" Pa said, "Oh no, we know where he is." The young man began to count out the money, when a face all of a sudden they see. Ma said, "Hey, look, it's Albert!" A face at the window. Pa said, "Ah, it would be." Young Albert ran in all excited and started his story to give. Pa said, "I'll never trust lions again. No, not as long as I live." The young man from the Prudential to pick up the money began, but Pa said, "Up just a moment. Don't be in a hurry, young man." And giving young Albert a shilling, said, "Here, pop on back to the zoo. Here's your stick with the horse's head handle. Go and see what the tigers can do." Oh dear. Well, I actually wrote a sequel to that one time for my mother on one of her birthdays, called Albert and the Tigers. Unfortunately, I've lost this, but you know, he does go back to the zoo quite dejected, of course, rejected by his parents, and so he's just going to go and let the tigers take him. But it turns out they take him in, and they talk with him, and they begin teaching him life lessons. Too bad this is all lost. I have no idea where it is. But my mother loved it. This was after my father had died. He probably wouldn't have approved, but it's all right. But speaking of zoos, you know, it was a little bit like that around here, especially when the boys were very young. There were times when I would like to have sent them off to the zoo. But no, you see, they had this game that they loved to play, especially Morgan and Marshall, the twins, the mischievous twins when they were quite young, which was to run up and down the stairs gleefully. until inevitably that time would come that a screeching scream would pierce the air, and one had hurt another. And here I was trying to work on my harp, down in another part of the house. Now, whenever things like this happened, it was Pam who came to the rescue, because she was the one, in her infinite motherly wisdom, was always able to restore peace. I usually retreated to my harp, and on this occasion I composed a new piece that has since become one of my favorites from a long time ago, called The Stairs. pleasure, by the way, to be sharing this hour with you. And I hope you're enjoying it. As I move along, I'm going to dredge forth another part of my childhood, because my father, it was, who is quite fond of Tom Lehrer's songs, and part of my childhood was listening to these wonderful satirical songs of Tom Lehrer. In fact, it was quite early on that my first love song that I was to memorize was from that album of Tom Lehrer, you know, sharks gotta swim and bats gotta fly. I gotta love one woman till I die. To Ed or Dick or Bob, she may be just a slob, but to me, she's my girl, and I love her. Well, needless to say, that didn't give me a head start on the dating scene when I got to that age. But, so, I was a slow learner. On the other hand, there was one song on there that I determined, it was my all-time favorite, that I was going to memorize it someday and learn it. Well, it took me about 50 years, but 60 years actually, but I finally got to it. And now I can joyfully say that I can recite for you the entire periodic table of the elements. All right. My father also took us to the plays of Gilbert and Sullivan. He was very fond of these. And as it happens, Tom borrowed one of the melodies from one of those plays to create this song, which, as I see it now during this pandemic, this will give you a complete list of everything that you could possibly need. All right. This is called The Elements. Now, Tom, of course, would play it on the piano, so I had to reduce it to the accordion, naturally. Aluminum, selenium, and hydrogen and oxygen and nitrogen and rhenium, nickel, neodymium, neptunium, germanium, and iron, americium, ruthenium, uranium, europium, zirconium, lutetium, and astatine, and radium, and gold, palladium, and indium, and gallium, and iodine, thorium, and thulium, and thallium. There's yttrium, ytterbium, actinium, rubidium, boron, gadolinium, niobium, iridium, strontium, and silicon, silver, and samarium, and bismuth, lithium, beryllium, and barium. There's holmium, and helium, and hafnium, and erbium, phosphorus, and francium, and chlorine, and terbium, manganese, and mercury, molybdenum, magnesium, dysprosium, and scandium, and cerium, and cesium. And lead, neodymium, and platinum, plutonium, palladium, promethium, potassium, polonium, and tantalum, technetium, titanium, tellurium, and cadmium, and calcium, and chromium, and curium. There's sulfur, californium, and terbium, ruthenium, and also palladium, and titanium, nobelium, krypton, neon, radon, tin, and rhodium, chlorine, carbon, chroma, copper, tungsten, tin, and sodium. These are the only ones in which the news has come to Harvard. And there may be many others, but they haven't been discovered. So there. So taking you back to the Warm Island cultures once again, back to Maui. I composed this piece for Pam when she so kindly obtained this beautiful koa ukulele for me. It's called My Lovely Lady by the Sea. My lovely lady by the sea, take my hand and come with me. You trim the sail and take the helm, while we both cross this earthly realm. We'll journey wide, we'll travel far, until we reach that furthest star. And when our worldly sojourn's done, we'll sail the universe as one. something's coming my way here.
It's
Oh
Philip's
my
birthday.
goodness.
You have to have a cake and he has to make a wish. Thank you all for making his birthday very special.
Oh my goodness, Pammy.
Make a wish.
Oh, that's incredible. Whew. Look at those nasturtiums. Whew. Yeah.
So make a wish and blow it out. Everyone sing happy birthday to Philip. Galahad, you're supposed to sing.
You know, I always used to wish, one wish for my birthday. I would wish for world peace. But it would never come true. And then I think I realized why one time, because you're not supposed to tell people what your wishes are. So this time I'm going to make a wish. In fact, I'm going to make 2 wishes. And I'm not going to tell you what they are. There you have it. And now.
Here, let me take this.
Thank you, Pam. That was absolutely delicious.
We're going to have some chocolate afterwards.
Chocolate cake, my favorite. Are you sure there's time for
Yes,
that?
yes.
Is there really?
Yes.
No way.
Mojo.
Oh man, okay. I was hoping I'd get out of this one. Okay, well I actually did have a request for some blues at one of the last live stream shows. Someone emailed. So I thought I would.
358.
Yeah.
You're going a little over. It's okay.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, you know what? Maybe I should. Okay, all right. I'm going to give you a little blues, and this is grown out of course, my having been a tuner of strings for the majority of my life. I've tuned well over 1 million strings, and part of that has been a discouraging journey of trying to figure out and finally coming to grips with the idea that there is no just tonation and equal temperament. That means there's no justice or equality. Just kidding. This is called Mojo String Blues. I.e., my strings just don't love me anymore. Pythagoras one day had this for me to say: fifths don't equal octaves, I said. What the hey, my strings won't get in tune. No matter what I say or what I do, my strings won't tell a lie. They're just waiting for my demise, because my strings don't love me anymore. My strings don't love me, oh Lordy Lord. No matter what I say, what I do, put on my walking shoes, I got the Mojo String Blues, and I walk. I don't know where, because my strings, well, they don't care. Ooh, won't tell a lie. They're gonna torment me until the day that I die, because my strings don't love me, and I just don't know why. They'll torment me until the great by and by. And though I pay my dues, put on my walking shoes, I got the Mojo String Blues, my strings. Woe is me. My strings don't love me anymore. I'm gonna walk right out the door. The strings have made a fool of me. I wish these blues would let me be. All right, folks. Thank you so much for putting up with me this hour. A little bit of whimsy and nonsense. with a few soulful pieces thrown in. So I'm going to end off with a piece that's very special to me. You know, this time that we're all going through, I feel like humanity is undergoing a great metamorphosis, a catharsis in ways. And this becomes painful when it's time to tear down old concepts and build up a new world. But Pam expressed it so beautifully in something that she wrote as an introduction to this piece that I would simply love to quote her words, that as we seek a hopeful path through this time of great global unrest, may we find our way into the quiet garden and there find our common spirituality. So I'm going to take you there now, and thank you so much for listening to me today and celebrating my birthday with me. Matter of fact, it isn't, oh, thank you, my dear. It isn't actually my birthday yet, so you'll have to figure out when it might be.
It's tomorrow.
What? You weren't supposed to tell them that.
That's okay.
Okay, now everybody knows. But I love celebrating ahead because that just means I get to celebrate that much longer. Okay, folks, I'm going to send you off with a harp piece called The Quiet Garden. Here. Cool off a tiny bit. to mention to all of you that Pam and I will be doing a live stream from the Alberta Rose Theatre this coming Thursday, so don't miss it. And you can see on our Facebook page and various places where the links are to get tickets. Meanwhile, coming Thursday the 16th. All right, so I'm going to keep celebrating my birthday, so I'll see you all later, and much love to you all.